Hello. Gigahurt posted a tree on this post here. Forum moderation needs anti-bias policies. And I'm going to read it. It is in PNG format. So I decided to open it with Affinity Designer. Because in preview, you can't just drag around. There's no way to drag left and right with your mouse. You can use the arrows. Look how slow they are though. That's holding it down with max key repeat, right? So yeah, I'm gonna use dragging, and I've also got this little mini version down here which I can click around on. I can also scroll sideways with shift using my mouse wheel. Unfortunately, in this app I cannot use the arrow keys. I can scroll bar though as well. Okay. There's a legend. I'm gonna make a copy of it. I won't get smaller. Oh. Anyways, legend over there. Okay, so I wrote the post, and Elizer says communities die when they don't defend themselves. Gigahertz filling in blanks. Fools are people who lower the quality of discussion. I think that was, well, Elizer's post mentioned fools. So it's not a total blank, but I don't think he defined fools. Or did he mention fools, or maybe that word came from somewhere else? I forgot. Alright, let's find out. Oh yeah, fool is from the quote that I used. By the way, Internet Rules found this article and quoted something from it, possibly this part, which is how I found it to write a post about. Cool, 22 matches, that's a lot. And it does not look like he defines it. Okay. What's over here? Too many fools will lower the quality of discussion. The quality of speech. Low threshold, results in community death. Communities need to keep fools out. And that's, yeah, Gigahertz talking for Yudkowsky. That seems reasonable. I think that's what Yudkowsky thinks. Then over here, we have, these ones are actually attributed to Yudkowsky. Communities form around high quality speech. This one I think is reasonable. Like, I don't think it's the only way they form, but it is a way they form. Fools lower the quality of discussion. Prolific fools lower the quality of discussion more than less prolific ones. This depends. This is fairly common, like I can understand why he would say this, but I don't think it's a universal rule. I think sometimes, like if someone's trying to troll you on purpose in order to destroy your forum, often some level of subtlety is better. If you can get the other people to argue amongst themselves a lot, that can be better and like a lot more effective than for the purpose of trolling on purpose, or, you know, having different values and doing things that other people think are trolling or whatever. Anyways, you know, if that was your goal, getting the other people to fight amongst themselves is better than bickering with them yourself. If you just bicker with people yourself a lot, they'll just blame you, and like ask you to be banned and so on. But if you just say things that like trigger people a little bit and bring up divisive things, you could be a lot more effective at causing trouble. Articulate fools lower the quality. Articulateness demands a response. Oh man, he specifically... Okay, I think there's something wrong with person who just thinks articulate fools is a, like, a known category that doesn't need explanation. I mean, I don't recall an explanation in the article. Like, I think it's problematic to talk about fools without explaining who's a fool, why do you think they're a fool. But to say articulate people are fools is like going further. Like articulateness is a sign of not being a fool. It's, you know, some prima facie evidence that they aren't a fool. And then you're just like, how do you catch them? How do you know they're a fool? When the only like quality we're getting is that they're articulate, which is a good thing. I disagree with this a lot. So I think there's a real problem here. I just disagree with there's no solutions. Fools drain your time. Um, like, and sort of ending the discussion here. I think that it's extremely important to figure out how can you efficiently answer arguments, questions, criticisms, etc. in an organized manner where you can reuse things. And if someone asks new things that are not covered by any of the stuff you've already done, then that's good. They're bringing up issues you haven't addressed. And if they ask things you've already addressed, then you can very, very cheaply and efficiently just send them a link. That's basically the strategy that I recommend. You should be creating reusable material that answers people instead of making excuses for not answering them. I've written about this in my Paths Forward stuff, among other places. So you want to be developing a library of good material, like the sequences, which answers people's questions, criticisms, doubts, etc., so that you don't have to keep repeating yourself, so that you fix this requires time problem. This does get into some theoretical questions, like, is there sort of an unlimited number of dumb ideas people can bring up? And my answer to that is no, not without falling into patterns, and you can criticize the patterns themselves. If a guy is being a fool because he matches a detectable pattern of foolishness, you can criticize that pattern, you can write down that criticism, and you can reuse it. So I think there's only like, you know, a certain number of common fool patterns, and you just need to write articles covering all of them, or find existing articles if anyone else has ever noticed fools before and written anything worthwhile. And then you find things that address all the common types of being a fool. And then if someone manages to be a fool in a new way, you know, someone in the world has to write one new article instead of making excuses for why to ignore fools. And if your articles don't stand the test of time, if they're not canonical enough, if you keep having to rewrite them, that means your understanding of fools is not good enough and keeps having to be updated. Like you were wrong about some of your reasons for thinking someone was a fool. So you shouldn't be complaining if you have to redo the articles. You should be realizing that you don't know what you're talking about as much as you thought you did. Okay, so that was that branch. Fools are people who lower the quality of discussion. Fools can be identified. And then we get into a bunch of stuff I said. Oh, curation and open forum can coexist. One alternative is many walled gardens to fit each person's bias. This doesn't eliminate bias. This disapproval is kind of ambiguous. Like, you could disapprove of my argument, or you could disapprove of this scenario. The thumbs down is from Gigahurt. I assume that he kind of agrees with me, or he would have written something out that was clearer. That's my guess. This is a typo. My claim was that integrity is not enough, or like trying for integrity is not enough. Success at integrity would be enough, you know, in some sense of the word integrity. If you did enough integrity, it would work. But, you know, you can't count on that. So just like, I'm going to have integrity is not a good enough safety mechanism. But I think this is supposed to say integrity is not enough. And then, yeah, the disliking is also unclear here. It could mean that he like dislikes the situation I describe, or he could dislike my argument and like disagree with it. It's hard, it's not very clear. Okay, over here, bunch of things. Clarification needed, quote, and me. Okay, in a resilient form where people think for themselves about what to focus attention on. What is the parent of this? Don't rely on judgment. No, that's not the parent. Oh, the parent is this. Stop assuming you're right and take seriously the need of error correction. Establish efficient and reusable mechanisms that address everyone, even fools, and make it harder to act on whim, bias, or rationality. Do not depend on integrity. Yeah. Right, so the efficient mechanisms thing is important. Efficient, reusable mechanisms. So you don't even have to judge whether someone's a fool or not if your policy is answer all the objections and arguments and whatever. Just cover all the stuff. That's my answer. Instead of avoiding some issues and making excuses for why you don't address the issue, just address all the issues. There are enough patterns that this doesn't just take forever. I mean, the reason it seems to take forever is that it's hard to resolve issues. But that problem applies if you want to cover 5 issues. The problem is not that covering all the issues is too many and too hard. The problem people normally have is that they don't know how to cover 5 issues effectively, or often even 1. So, yeah, if you find issues like, if you actually successfully cover like 10 issues, I think you'll see that you could do more. And if you actually know what you're doing, you can find patterns, right? Like if you know people are being foolish, you criticize the patterns instead of each individual case, and then it's not that much work. But if you don't know what the patterns are, then it's a lot more work because there's a lot more individual cases. On the other hand, if you don't know what the patterns are, you shouldn't say, oh, well, he's a fool. He fits a pattern that I can't articulate. But I can recognize that he's a fool in this case, but I can't name any pattern. Like, that is not a good position. If you don't understand what they're doing very well, you shouldn't be declaring them a fool and then ignoring them. You should be researching it. Write down rules in advance. Make the rules predictable and clear. Include laws that regulate the enforcers. Even more important on forums where power is concentrated. Do not enforce retroactively. General enough for all users. Yeah, like, don't make rules targeted at specific people. Okay, over here. Explain moderator decisions, discuss them, reply to discussion points. Yeah, so this is the same as before where I was saying, you know, cover the issues. Address the issues. You know, it applies to meta discussion about moderation as well as to any other relevant issue. Don't follow up on all discussion points. I don't understand. Oh, okay. it means like if you don't follow up. It's like a hypothetical, because I just thought it was like we have a parent and then we contradict it. And I'm like, what? Okay, so one of the scenarios is if you don't do this, then you are blocking error correction. And also that the cutoff points where you won't discuss provides evidence about what your biases and errors are. There's a bunch of stuff over here I didn't read yet, but I'll keep doing this section. If you can't resolve follow-ups, fix that before eliminating fools. Being unable to resolve disagreements is a symptom of being a fool yourself. Let the fool defend himself, not just others defend him. If you must, censor other activities until the proceedings are over. So right, like if you're in process of trying to accuse someone of being a fool, and you think they're causing a bunch of trouble, you could tell them, hey, I need you to stop posting in other topics until we resolve this are you a fool problem. You can only post on this one topic about yourself until we resolve it. That would be reasonable in general, compared to just like banning him without letting him explain himself. You could say, I'm letting you stay here to explain yourself, but until we figure this out, like stop doing the other things that's currently seems to be a problem, in my opinion. Okay, so then over here, if you must judge, behave like a scientist. Publish results, processes transparent, replicatable, write about sources of error. Scientific method presents bias. Harder to fake because science requires procedures and documentation. Fraud needs to be caught by outsiders. They don't have unlimited resilience. Control groups don't care if you're biased. As in, it still works. Even if you're biased, it's like they make it harder for you to be biased or for your biases to succeed. Same with double blind. Okay, and then over here, what is the parent of this? How do you make sure your identification is unbiased, objective, consistent, and explainable? Trust in the discretion of others. This is Gigahurt speaking for Yudkowsky, and he doesn't like this idea. Community members need to trust their moderators and each other or else die. Trusting yourself doesn't overcome bias. It's okay to come to conclusions, but don't trust yourself to be free of bias to keep free of bias to the extent you don't need a mechanism to keep you honest. Yeah. Like, you try to not be biased, and maybe you do a good job, but you shouldn't think you're perfect. You should keep having mechanisms that make it harder for you to screw up as well. Like, scientists don't say, well, I'm a really good scientist, so I'm just going to get rid of the blinding on my study because trust me. You know, they say, I'm a good scientist, so I do a good job, but so I do things right. Like, part of being a good scientist is following the right procedures. They're there for a reason. A good scientist should understand the value of these things that make it easier on him. Like, if it's not taking all your energy to not screw up because there's no blinding, then you can put that energy into something more useful. Like, the mechanisms mean that you can devote more attention elsewhere. And they mean, like, if things go wrong, it's easier to track down what happened, because it's not just a bunch of ad hoc, arbitrary winging it because you think you're so great. If moderation to be questioned, the community is probably not worth saving. You can't expect people to be flawless. You need systems to regulate flawed people, human judgment, biased decisions, oppression. Academia is a walled garden that keeps the fools out. The mods in academia are good. As I respond, academia walls are based on social status. Was there more over here? Yes. Aha. Okay, so considering the claim I trust my judgment, then I say, you're likely as biased as the fool If you think your biases are small and manageable, you're wrong. We're all ignorant. We all have big errors. You suppress something you see as wrong. You aren't suppressing wrong. You're suppressing outliers. There's a need to differentiate between positive and negative outliers. I trust my judgment informed by methods to eliminate bias. The subjective sensation of trying hard does not signal success in eliminating bias. Yeah, I like that. Did I read everything? I think I might have read everything. Okay, and I named this stream wrong, so let's rename that. Gigahertz forum moderation trees. And let's get a link. This one. This link. Okay, fix the stream title. I'm just thinking about whether I want to do anything else on stream or just end now. Oh, I know what I want to talk about a little bit, I think. Yeah, I had some sort of comment somewhere in here. Oh yeah, it's that the distribution of outcomes is important, and Yudkowsky keeps neglecting it. He just looks at expectation value. Right, he's aware of diminishing marginal utility of money, but I don't remember seeing the slightest thing about distribution of outcomes mattering. People want lower variance. There's something, but it was inadequate. Where is it? I'm not saying people are doing a good calculation in this particular case. I just thought he was neglecting a major factor. with some of his statements. Oh, like this one is a good example, I think. Like, why would you want, suppose you're looking at this in a self-interested way. Why would you want a 10% probability of not having saved any lives and not gaining any social status? Or quite possibly being flamed like hell for your project failing. Whereas if you save 400 lives versus 500, you don't actually get 25% more credit for saving 500 lives than 400. You know, Yudkowsky himself has an article on scope insensitivity. It's like a few chapters before this one, I think. Yeah, so here's scope insensitivity, and here are the ones that I was just looking at. So he literally opens this part of the book with scope insensitivity, and then he wonders why people would prefer a 100% chance of saving lives over a 90% chance of saving lives. Well, because they're not going to get credit for, they're not going to get credit proportional to the number of lives they save. For that's one of the reasons, and the other reason is the distribution matters. Why have a 90% chance of a great outcome and a 10% chance of a bad outcome when you can have a 100% chance of a good outcome? This one's like way safer. This is not the same gamble. Here, it's a 100% chance of failure versus a 10%, or sorry, versus a 90% chance of success. Right? Here you have a 100% chance that everyone's going to be mad at you. And here you have a 10% chance that everyone's going to be mad at you. Even if they weren't scope insensitive and they were going to be 5 times as mad, you might want a 90% chance your life continues with nothing bad happening. Like, that could be completely reasonable. It is an anti-variance thing. But this one's higher variance, and variance in general is bad. But a chance that your life goes on the way you want it definitely has value. Like, this one has a 0% chance of something you're really happy with, and this one has 10%. And so this one's higher variance, but it also actually gives you a chance at a life you're happy with. So yeah, I think this stuff is naive and that it ignores the distributions, among other things. Let me check my bookmarks again. I have several in this area. Oh yeah, here we go. He says, does computing expected utility feel too cold-blooded for you? Just shut up and multiply. Multiply means compute expected utility without paying any attention to the distribution. Distributions matter. So this is just wrong. Like, even if you're going to be totally cold-blooded and we're going to ignore everything about social status, distributions matter. And it's like, I think it's a really basic point. To me, it is. It's like, what's better? Suppose that you're poor. Would you rather have a 10% chance of getting $11 million or a 100% chance of getting $1 million? You know, you should take the guaranteed million, even though the expectation value is lower, because the distribution's better. The distribution better fits your problem situation. What distributions are good is contextual, but in general, lower variance. Lower variance of good things is good. Maybe just lower variance in general. There are exceptions, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff where we want lower variance. Okay, so let's try this. All right. I'm just going to search for the word distribution with the advanced search panel. It's in the book a bunch of times. Oh, these don't tell me where in the book it is. I want to find like percentage wise. So like, where in the book was I just then? I was down here, so we're still well too high. So now we've gotten after slightly. I think. Wait, no, we haven't. Technical. Oh. Okay, let's try this one. Aha. Oh, it's in the same chapter? Oh, distribution over landing spots. Okay, yeah, he's not making a distribution of outcomes matter point, I don't think. I'll read it though. I mean, I've already read this, but I'll read it more carefully right now. For various other games you can play. Certainty of 400 or an 80% probability of 500 and a 20% probability of 300. So you usually take the 400. Yeah, so that is dumb for the vast majority of problem situations. Yeah, and they can't math. I get it. So in this one, yeah, so in this one the distributions are the same. So the fact that people are dumb is still a correct. There's still criticism of people to be had here. People are not mathing all these things correctly, which gets into a lot of other problems, like you're just asking people hypothetical math questions and then they get them wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean that if it matters in their life they'll get it wrong, although they very well might. But you have this is not a good proxy for how well people can think when they have more of an incentive. And yet this is like it's conversation instead of actual decision making. There's like differences. But anyways. You should check the expectation value, but the mean outcome is not everything. It's not even close to everything. And Yudkowsky just doesn't talk about that and explain that. So this is a bit shallow. I'm wondering if I want to write this down right now while it's fresh in my mind. On the one hand, I'm tired. On the other hand, does pointing out this particular error help me with my goals? Like, it was fun to talk about a bit in an easy way, but would writing a nice version help me? Like, does my regular audience care about this that much? Probably not. Will less wrong like me if I post this point? I doubt it. And is this very relevant to my main goals? Like explaining yes or no philosophy stuff? I think no. Will less wrong people give interesting responses that will have value to me? No, they'll either say dumb things or they'll agree with me. I don't think I'll get interesting responses. Will FI people say anything interesting about this? I don't think so, and also if they wanted to, they could watch the video and then do it. Okay, I'm out. I'm gonna edit this into the video description so it's findable.